Tracey. Where are you? Tracey MacKinnon is going to give us a little story. Tracey is a person that's living in poverty and telling us what that's like. Tracey.
Actually, I'm not speaking. I'm not 6 feet tall. Sorry. I thought I'd be speaking as an injured worker, but Steve said no. I want you to talk about basic income. I'll talk about basic income. So, what is poverty? Poverty is a condition of a person deprived of resources, means, choices, and power necessary to acquire and maintain a basic living standard needed to promote and facilitate interaction and participation in society. The connection between health and poverty is so clear that in 2017, the World Health Organization declared poverty to be the single largest social detriment of health. Poverty costs Ontario $33 billion a year. It is legislated poverty. Food banks were created during the economic recession and were designed to be a temporary solution. The first food bank in Canada opened on January 16, 1981, in Edmonton, during a recession due to the oil industry bust. Here we are, 42 years later, and the food banks are still widely used today. A basic income program could even that distribution. Such a program would ensure poverty is vanquished and persistent inequities within social benefit structures in the country are eliminated. Support for livable income program continues to grow wider and deeper. There are currently private member bills in both the Senate and the House. Both bills propose the federal government introduce a livable basic income program. Building such a program that is universally accessible to those lacking a livable income preserves human dignity, removes discriminatory barriers, encourages people in the work that they do, streamlines current bureaucracy, and works alongside other social supports, including healthcare, pharmacare, pension, and education supports. Particular attention should address the barriers experienced by Indigenous peoples, recognizing that established colonial systems have leave Indigenous peoples out of decision-making and deny their rightful place in Canada's economy. Such a program is possible. Its implementation can build on the cross-party and jurisdictional cooperation demonstrated in the third rollout to respond to COVID-caused insecurity. Most recently, municipalities have voiced strong support for a national guaranteed livable income program with resolutions passed, and more will follow. More prominent and respected organizations and individuals have been advocating for such a program for more than 50 years. Numerous Whale Commissions and other respected studies have concluded that a livable basic income will be a net benefit to our society. Canada is a signatory to the UN Declaration of Human Rights, Article 25, which states, "Everyone has a right to a standard of living adequate for health and well-being of himself and his family." Also, Canada and the provinces in 1971 signed on to the International Covenant of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Article 11 repeats the UN Article 25 and further states the right of everyone to be free from hunger. Roughly 1 in 10 households nationwide is food insecure. This year, Canada's inflation reached a 30-year high, with food prices making their biggest jump in more than a decade. While food banks can relieve some pressure, they only offer so much. Imagine you have $2,000 a month to live on. Rent averages nearly $2,000 a month nationwide, and affordable housing can run over $1,000. Your money is nearly gone from rent alone. Why is this happening in Canada? Recent inflation is part of the explanation, but at the root is the ongoing failure to effectively address poverty. While many poverty reduction proposals are made, few of the most notable ones are implemented. Advocates demand major increases to provincial social assistance and more non-market housing. Particularly relevant when nearly half of Canadians say housing costs are the biggest obstacle to affording food. Measures at the start of the pandemic, such as federal supplements and provincial boosts, helped, and accordingly, food insecurity dropped during fall 2020. It also showed the governments could quickly act when they wanted to, but these measures were short-lived, while poverty lives on. Canadians continue to go hungry, and the gap between the cost of living and the means they have to live on is widening. Several staples, including beef, chicken, dairy, and milk, are impacted. It's estimated the average Canadian family spent an extra $966 on food in 2022. Those who receive income assistance need a substantial increase in their basic allowances. Social policies need to be made more humane to those who need help. It's getting harder and harder for food banks to feed the communities hungry with the rising cost of living and inflation across the board. We have seen the implementation of the CERB, CRB, and other recovery benefits, the huge impact on mental health and all of our health impact. The Ford government, the Liberal government, promised to keep the Ontario Basic Income Pilot Project going for its duration. We know this was cancelled. Instead, it took a pandemic to reveal our stark reality. Last fall, prior to leaving for Toronto to attend the Canadian Alliance on Ending Homelessness Conference, I was invited to speak in an NDP MPP roundtable with other persons with lived experience. We discussed the ongoing frustrations despite the 5% increase in September 22 to ODSP. We concluded we need to bring back the Ontario Basic Income Pilot Project or implement a targeted income for those living in poverty. We need to replace regressive policies. To understand the root cause of poverty, we need to examine our society from many different perspectives. Intersectionality and oppression, as they are interwoven. A basic income needs to be equitable and complement other programs available. With no requirements to work or get a job. Unfortunately, those struggling with poverty and homeless are turning to alternatives like MAID, medically assisted death. Call it what you may, a dignity payment, targeted income, basic income. We can't afford not to have a universal basic guaranteed income. I sit on many anti-poverty groups, Poverty Free by the Bay, Fair Free Transit Working Group, Basic Income Working Group, Housing and Homelessness Coalition, Elizabeth Fry Advisory Council, Human Rights Task Force, Women's National Housing and Homeless Network. Last month, I attended a national conference on housing and homelessness in Winnipeg at the Human Rights Museum as a person with lived experience. I also attended social housing and human rights conference while I was in Winnipeg as a person with lived experience. Could you live on less than $20,000 a year? Basic income would be just about that, $24,000 a year or $2,000 a month. People with disabilities must be lifted out of poverty in order to be able to afford the necessities of life in Canada, including but not limited to adequate housing. An adequate standard of living most certainly includes the ability to pay for affordable, accessible, and safe housing. Being injured on the job will always be disruptive. A universal basic income would help protect people who are injured from poverty and might help them not try to rush back to work too soon for fear of losing their jobs. The benefit would stretch beyond bare necessities and would likely reduce stress quite quickly. $2,000 a month, that's more than a live a lifetime. What is a life worth? Apparently $733 and an ODSP, $1230. That's it. Fuck you, Ford.